I just slap a load of bonuses in. If you get one international call-up, I'll give you 3 million. It's all things like, do these things happen in real life? I don't know.
Hello and welcome to episode 6 of the First4LCFC Podcast with me, Jamie Thorpe, and both Christian Moston and our American friend Austin Forbes. Gents, how are you both doing?
Very well, thank you, Jamie. Yeah, not bad.
Good, thank you.
Austin, good to hear from you. I've not been on the same one as you for a while, so obviously a bit of rotation again with Edbert dropping to the bench on this occasion. But the three of us are here, and we're going to review all of the big Leicester talking points as we usually do. And looking back on what must have been one of the most mental footballing weekends in recent history, the results, if you'd had £1 on all three of those, would have got you 250,000 quid back. But unfortunately, Leicester were on the wrong end of one of these shocks. 3-0 at home to West Ham, as we were frankly out-Leicestered on the counter-attack. So, Chris, I mean, we may as well just get straight into this. It's probably not going to be the happiest of podcasts, but starting with you, what went wrong?
I think it's a recurring theme, really. And it's obviously going to be hard to be positive this week. But for me, it's frustrating because it's not just this season. Obviously, we've only had a handful of games, but last season, going back into the Puel era as well, we've struggled against teams who sit back and want us to take the game to them. And it's worrying that we haven't got a plan B to sort of combat that. So, there's no surprise that we've got such a good record potentially against the top 6 teams, because obviously they're traditionally going to come out and try and, put their mark on the game. But now we're sort of in between the two that, yes, we can, potentially go out and beat them. But then you got West Ham coming to us. We're starting with 3 centre-backs, which in itself invites pressure and doesn't leave us on the front foot. And we just struggle to break them down. I think the most alarming stat for me was that Vardy had less touches than both keepers. And it is frustrating because at 1 minute you're giving Brendan Rodgers praise, like fantastic result against Man City, but deep down, I said in last week's pod that there's just a feeling that we always brought back down to earth playing an average team after that. And for me, the frustration is that we can't break these teams down.
Yeah, I mean, Austin, as Chris has mentioned, Leicester played the same lineup that they played against West Ham. Do you not think that it was perhaps a slightly baffling decision from Rodgers, given that both games were likely to pan out very, very differently?
Yeah, when I saw the team, I didn't get why we went 5 at the back. I mean, the only thing that would have maybe made so is because there was no Madison, no Pratt, no Ndidi, so we didn't really have the midfielders to really fill out. But in terms of the game, like we needed to take the game to them and put them under pressure. But us putting 5 at the back just invited it, and it just did not work. And then we couldn't really change it, and he didn't change it until Marti got injured and had to leave. So that was slightly worrying there too.
Yeah, I mean, for me, one of the worst things about it was, like Chris has mentioned, it was very Puel-esque, wasn't it? It was the way that we sort of had the ball with very little threat, and it just felt a bit like a throwback to those games that eventually did get Puel sacked. But Chris, one of the players that has come in for most criticism for squandering the ball when we did finally manage to work into good areas was Ayoze Perez. Do you think that the criticism has been fair that's been levelled at him?
It's interesting. I've not personally, to be fair, I've not done a lot of reading after the game. Sort of stay clear of social media in these instances. But from watching it, I wouldn't necessarily criticise him. For me, he just falls into that same bracket, dead average. Like, he just goes through a game not really standing out. But no, to be fair, there was moments where I remember him sort of when he's playing centrally, I think he's a lot more potent than when he's getting wasted on the wing, in my opinion. But I think there was a couple of moments he tried to thread Vardy through. I think one ball was probably, not where Vardy wanted it in particular, but I think he looked sharp when he's getting the ball on the turn. And for me, he's probably when Pratt's not in the team, the most creative player we've got going through the middle, but therefore it's just frustrating when he keeps floating out to the wing. But no, I wouldn't necessarily say he had a bad game. I just don't think he had a great game like anyone did.
No, I think it was a bit of a across the board, wasn't it? But I mean, we've mentioned that the attacking play was ponderous. I mean, I don't think Leicester even managed to register a single shot on target, which, let's be honest, at home in a game like that is frankly atrocious. But I mean, how much do you put that down to us into the fact that we're missing our most creative players, such as James Maddison? Would having him in the squad have made a significant difference?
It definitely makes a difference, but first of all, there's no excuses to why we can't at least get a shot on goal with the players we have. But definitely not only Madison not being there, but Pratt as well, and how well Pratt and Tillemans has played together, and how Pratt and Castagna is linked up. I mean, I think he's almost as a bigger loss than Madison was in this game. They bring so much into how we break down teams, and them not being there hurts us a lot.
Chris, is that something that you'd agree with, that Pratt has sort of got himself a role where actually is quite crucial in our system?
Yeah, definitely. I think yesterday, without a lot of fans probably without even knowing, it's when you miss a player that you realise just sort of how pivotal they could potentially be. Because ultimately, I'd like to see his stats on balls into the final third, because surely he has to be up there this season with the amount of minutes he's played. But referring back to lack of shots on goal, because there was chances. It's frustrating again though, because when Vardy did get the ball, he was getting it literally on the wing, which is I guess where we sort of saw him for England, and it's just so. Yeah, we don't expect him to score. Even shoot from those angles, because then we'd just be criticising why didn't he play it back across goal. But I think fundamentally, it's working back to our actual initial third. How much of a job West Ham did on keeping Castagna and Justin literally penned back into those positions. There's a lot of jokes going around. Obviously, David Moyes, since working from home, like he's other than that result in the cup, he's pulled some fantastic performances out of the bag. So, but I think it was just a tactical masterclass from them, and credit where credit's due. But I do think we make it too easy. Like, we're so predictable, like in terms of starting like that. If you take a game to West Ham, then we can't have any excuses, if we get caught out. But we didn't even create chances. So it was just a matter of how many goals we were going to lose by ultimately, wasn't it?
That's right. I mean, we had 3 shots all game. Well, 4 shots all game, sorry. I mean, 2 of their defenders managed more than them between them. It just smacked of one of those matches that if you're not going to be able to create, you at least need to be able to rely on being solid at the back. And I mean, we normally have quite a reliable centre-back pairing. Castagna and Justin have been pretty good so far this season, but Austin, that just wasn't the case this time around, was it? They were just all over the shop, for want of a better word.
Yeah, it was just, I just don't know if they were just shocked for a simple reason. I mean, they just didn't look themselves. I mean, did I expect Daniel Marty to go out there and perform like he did last week? Absolutely not. But especially with seeing you two and Evans, and how experienced Johnny Evans is. I mean, the way we were just opening up, and the Antonio goal blew my mind, and how we let that in. I can't believe who it was, but someone was absolutely livid after that goal was scored. And
I think
the
Fornals goal, like, that was ridiculous, wasn't it? Like a hit and hope like that, and he just felt like he had all the time in the world. Like, he had a fantastic first touch, to be fair, because if that bounces, everyone's catching up with him. But I don't know, like, because I was speaking to Austin at the time, and I think he said that Amati was the one playing him on side. But for me, I can't. It's not about who's playing him on side. It's about allowing everyone in the defence to play such a high line to allow such a goal like that to happen. It just seems like you sort of see them sort of goals in Sunday League. It was literally a hit and hope.
It was a typical drink water.
It was so simple, wasn't
goal.
it? Yeah,
Typical.
I suppose we can't complain when we score quite a few goals like that. But you're right. The way that they sort of just seem, they were always quite slow to react as well. I thought the fact that Fornals had all the time to take the pressure whatsoever. I mean, Soyuncu's quick, but he only just caught up with him in the end, didn't he? But the Antonio goal, you're right, Austin, as well. There was a proper inquest, because I mean, apparently no Premier League player has scored more headed goals than Antonio since he made his debut. He scored 18 back in 2018 since 2015. So how can you play 5 defenders and have no one anywhere near him when the ball's swung into the box?
Well, this is what I mean. Like, again, I am negative, and I've got a reputation for that. But looking at our defence, how good is our actual defending? Because to me, it seems like it's a theme in the Premier League, especially though this season. It's ridiculous. Like, teams are forgetting how to defend, but fundamentally, that's probably because a lot of teams play out from the back. But that's not even where we're conceding goals. We're just like struggling to do again. Like, why are these things not being worked on in training? Like, surely as a centre back, an established centre back, like defending from a set piece is your bread and butter, is it not?
I mean, we know that we've had some issues at centre-back. Obviously, Ndidi had been playing there and advertising for Evans. So Evans has had no pre-season. He's come back with limited time to train. Do you think that it is simply a case of him not being match fit? Because normally he's the guy that marshals the defence, isn't he?
Yeah, I mean, I can see where you're coming from, and I'm not going to lock horns over that point. I'm just saying that the point you're making is that in match fitness, but the point I'm making is it's experience, like picking up a man from a corner or a set piece or free kick or whatever, or even from open play. It's like that should be ingrained in his head. He's been around for 15 years now or so. Like, for me, that's not down to fitness or a lack of game time. I think that's just like second nature, surely, for a professional defender.
Mm-hmm. I mean, so I don't know the extent of Amati's injury. But do you think that Fofana obviously is now joined? Do you think that he will have to maybe be contemplated for a start in the next few games, judging on that performance?
I mean, I think he will. I think he will come in. I mean, he's gonna have what, 2 weeks? I don't know what exactly the training schedule is going to be, but he's gonna have 2 weeks to get used to everything. And I worry that since Brendan's gonna look at the score line, see Aston Villa put up 7, and he's going to be, I want to play 5 at the back again. So I think he will put Fofana in there, and it's going to be Fofana, Soyuncu, Evans.
That is, I know. Obviously, we didn't think we'd be finding ourselves previewing Villa scoring 7, but I don't know. Is it not that they could fall into the same sort of? Is this not a great time to be playing Villa in a sort of weird roundabout way, because they're on such a high, but they're going away on international break now. So the best thing they'd want a game midweek, wouldn't they? Whilst they're on top. So but I guess it's the same for us coming off the back of a defeat. We'd want to be jumping back in straight away, but. It's an interesting one. But to start a player who's only played, I think it's shocking, like 35 top tier games in France. Like it's chucking him in the deep end as well, isn't it?
Mm. I mean, from what they're saying as well, his skill set is very similar to that of Soyuncu, in that he's quick, aggressive, and good in the air. So I think it's more important for us that Evans gets himself back up to speed, because I think it just seemed like we lacked that composure and that organisation that I think he brings. And to be fair, Villa definitely capitalised on that last night. I don't know if you saw the game, but I mean, Liverpool were atrocious defensively. They were all over the place. So it's certain that we're going to have to defend pretty well. But I mean, you've mentioned the international break and giving time for Evans to get back up to speed, for Fofana back up to full fitness, etc. Do you think it's probably come at a good time for us with all the injuries that we've got as well?
Yeah, I think so. I think you got to look at the positives in this situation. That all the players who are not going away on international duty. I don't know what the thing is. They probably have a few days off, don't they? And then probably resume some form of light training. They certainly won't be preparing for the Aston Villa game. I think they'll probably only have 2 or 3 days once everyone's back at the other side of this break. But yeah, I think from a fitness point of view, it is good. But what concerns me is probably the lack of preparation time, not having a full week to prepare for Aston Villa, because there's players like Jack Grealish who, I guess it's fair to say, he does go under the radar because his stats are really quite incredible. And if they were for a top 4 team, if you like, he'd be getting hooned about a lot more. But you know, and you got to play like him. He actually turned Van Dijk inside out. Did you see that bit where he goes like left, right, and then plays it through his legs? And I'm not having that. That was an accident. He knows what he's doing there, and he could players like that. That's what I mean. We're struggling to compete against basic defending, so you know, a bit more technical prowess like that, and it's going to be tricky for us.
I mean, yeah, he tied him up in knock, didn't he? And that is one of the best defenders in the world, and he had him on a plate. I think he nutmegged him through for Barkley, didn't he?
Yeah.
And if Barkley hadn't have been an utter shambles finish, then it would have been a very different scoreline, even worse than you'd expected. But so Leicester are definitely going to have to be at the top of their game, aren't they? Because there's momentum that we need to keep going. So Rodgers is in his post-match interview said that we should be, you know, that we would have taken those number of points from those 4 games. Do you both agree that the start of the season, despite that loss, has been a success, or do you think actually that was an opportunity wasted?
I think if at the beginning of the season, I think it would be a success. I mean, did we expect that what happened to City would? Absolutely not. So I think the fact that we would win the games that we were supposed to, then yes. But I think after the fact of how we played against City, it really looks like a disappointment. And at least get 10 points. I think I tweeted it's like 9 would be expected and 10 would be even better, assuming the draw was against City. So I think at the beginning of the year, definitely it would be pretty decent start for us, especially how the end of last year happened.
I mean, Chris, what with all the injuries that we've had and the suspensions we've dealt with, I mean, you think we are still missing 3 of our most important players? Can you say actually we'd have taken this and try and build and go again at the start of the season after the break?
Yeah, I think this debate is relative for me though, because yes, we would have taken 9 points from 12 and we'd have expected to be dropping points against Man City. But when we're on 9 points from 9 and we're playing West Ham at home, I don't like being asked, are we happy with our returns? Because no, I'm not happy with the returns because we should still have a 100% record. For me, it's a sign that just how deep is the progression that we're making, or is it a superficial sort of real top tier level that we can pull out performances against, you know, the better teams, but ultimately, you know, we still conceded goals in our opening 2 matches. Well, obviously we conceded some real sloppy goals in my opinion against Burnley. So, for me, it's just how much can you take from the progression? Because if we go all season with this inconsistent form, mention that our second game from now is actually, you know, our opening tie against Zorya in the Europa League. The inconsistency could just land us in mid-table. Surely, do you not think?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think that it's important that we not only keep the momentum, but keep the sort of the squad ticking over, keep the same lineup as much as we can. Because I think with the amount of changes that we've had in force, we've played different combos all over the pitch, players playing out of position, having to learn new positions. And it's just not what you need when you're going into what is going to be an extremely clustered fixture list over the next month or so. I mean, whilst we're talking about the draw, what was your reaction to the group, Chris? Obviously, you've mentioned that we've got Zorya Luhansk from Ukraine, and also they're joined by AEK Athens and Braga. What was your thoughts on that group?
Yeah, just the last thing before I answer that question, I think for me, like maybe a sign of like maturing as a football fan or whatever. Like as a kid or teenager, you love to see these like 4-3 scorelines, but I'd honestly take more satisfaction from a solid defensive performance and keeping a clean sheet and winning 1 or 2-0. Like I do find that a 1-0 scoreline is massively underrated now because what was it like when in the Invincible era, like typically like a lot of Arsenal's results would have been by like a single goal and you wouldn't have seen like 4-3, 5-4, 7-2. But I guess that's a sign of the game changing. That's a whole new debate. But I do just think let's do the fundamentals right, and if we start nicking goals and nicking games, I'd take a lot more satisfaction out of that. But no, in terms of the group itself, I was speaking to Austin again off air. For me, it's a group we should be progressing through. Obviously disappointed that fans won't be allowed inside grounds, whether or not fans travel or choose to travel to Athens in particular, because I think we're still allowed to go there at the time of recording. But it's a shame because Athens, that would be an incredible atmosphere, and no doubt they'd bring an absolute bunch of crazy football fanatic fans back to the King Power as well. Greece, obviously well known for its hostile atmosphere. So it's probably a blessing in disguise that it's not an absolute cauldron, to be fair. But ultimately, we should be beating all these teams. For me, I just feel Braga away could be a bit of a banana skin. Portuguese teams technically sound. That's where I'm coming from. But someone like Zoria, I don't know. I was sort of following the game against Dynamo Kiev yesterday. I'm not sure what the result was in the end, but I don't know. I don't know a lot about them. All I know is that they've got 1,000 followers on Twitter, which makes us a bigger social media powerhouse than the Ukrainian team. But no, for me, we should be topping that group easily. Yeah.
I mean, I don't fancy First4LCFC going up against them in an actual game of football. I'm not sure how we get on there, lads, to be honest. But no, you're right. It was probably one of the kinder draws. I guess there's so much unknown in that. I mean, without meaning to be disrespectful, I had genuinely never heard of Luhansk, and I know they have got previous in the Europa League, and they have turned up a few trees every now and then. It's still one of the easier groups, but it's certainly one that we're looking forward to. But just because obviously we're going back to why it's so important to have that squad there, and obviously the transfer window is not far off closing. Coming into October, I think we have a minimum of 5 games inside a month, with the Arsenal and Wolves games set to be rearranged. And we play our opening round in the Europa League only a few days after playing Villa at home, and then it's the same with Braga following the Leeds game. With that in mind, Chris, do you look at the transfer window and the moves Leicester have made, and do you think we've done enough to consider the window being a success?
Quite simply, no. I mean, if it's negative, why not just carry on being negative? And it's not, I'm trying to be negative in a constructive manner. Like, it's all well and good coming on here and saying everything's great but for me, it's not. I was saying to Austin again off air. I think we create enough content off air to have a separate podcast, to be fair. But I was saying, we should have gone out into the market. There's either free agents out there or players who are not expecting game time. Some experience. I've said this on numerous podcasts now. I would have loved to have seen someone who'd been around at Champions League level or Europa League level, whether it be a striker who we can bring on, I don't know, a bit of midfield cover, or even someone, in a defensive position, just to bring in a bit of experience. We do have a relatively good balance of youth and experience, but I just feel a couple more solid names, and I don't have any off the top of my head. Lack of research has cost me, but I wouldn't have minded. I was going out to say, and a lot of people might say they're underwhelming signings, but for me, someone you can bring on for 10 minutes when we need to see a game out, a good bit of grit, determination, wouldn't have gone amiss. I'm going to reference Liverpool. Obviously, it's not great timing. They've just lost 7-2. But I find that they don't need to go out and make, these high-end Hollywood signings, albeit that their team is made up of superstars, so it might not be a good example. But they sign sensibly. Alcantara, again, he wouldn't have gone and wowed everyone, but he can pass a ball, he can move a ball. Someone like that, someone who's got that, just an absolute like Rolls Royce in midfield. I would have loved to have seen that. But, I don't think it's going to happen, but that's how I'm feeling about it all.
For me, I think you're right. The area where we are still lacking is a creative attacking player for those games like we saw at the weekend. Someone that can actually, like I said, pick a pass, get us moving forward. Because Tielemans has been fantastic in the previous games, but he wasn't quite at it yesterday. And without Maddison, I thought we really, really struggled.
I think Barkley's, just for the record, a great addition to the Aston Villa side, and I would not have been against him coming to Leicester. I think he would have probably, if you're going to Villa, you'd be open to a move to Leicester, surely. Albeit his finishing's not great, but again, he's not had most game time, but he's a good player, isn't he? You'd have him in your squad.
Yeah, no doubt. I think he'd fit in quite well with the sort of mentality of the team as well, right? But I suppose Villa were probably able to guarantee him more first team football. Perhaps I don't know. But also in terms of looking at the other way, I think it's quite clear that we probably needed to bring a few more in. But there are no rumours or whispers or anything out there at the minute, so let's assume we don't. In terms of departures, though, it was obvious that Leicester needed to trim their squad, and we've seen the likes of Diabate, Kapuchka, Silva, etc., all leaving. I think Gazal's linked with a move away as well. Have Leicester got sort of done enough there to sort of trim the fat off their squad and get rid of those that you consider deadwood?
Yeah, I think. I mean, obviously we still looking at what Slimani's going to do. Still don't really know much there. At least I don't know much about what's happening there. Gazal leaving. I mean, it's obvious after we brought Chengo in that he wasn't going to play. So
I think Gazal's got
get
the Besiktas today, I believe.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah, I mean, it was clear he wasn't going to play. I believe he's on loan, and I believe his contract is up after this year. I could be wrong.
Yeah, it's a loan with with a buy clause in it.
Yeah, so that's good. We'll get at least some of our money back for him. And then players like Silva and Diabate. It was clear that we had all these big, like, older players who probably took a lot of wages, and just the way our club is moving forward, they just didn't fit into the picture. So we had to get rid of them, and at least we did that. But the problem is, like, we're talking about transfers. Like, who do we have as a third, like, emergency striker? Because if we're looking to loan Slimani out, we've already loaned George Hurst and Josh Epia out, who would be, I guess, our emergency striker. So it's like, if Jamie Vardy gets hurt or Kelechi gets hurt, what do we have after that? We need to at least get someone and bring them in.
Well, I never thought I'd be comparing ourselves to Spurs, but ultimately and famously on record, this is where their downfall for the past couple of seasons has been, hasn't it? Harry Kane gets injured. Sonny got injured for a period last year, didn't he? And then they're left with sort of nothing. I think they ended up playing, Dele Alli through the middle or something. And again, hopefully Vardy doesn't get injured. But yeah, we're left with Iheanacho and we are scraping the barrel. I just find it hard to believe that we can't afford, or we can't. Why are we not making the move? I'd just, obviously, if you ask Brendan, he's probably going to give you a very sort of coy answer. But why? What's his thinking in the lack of squad depth in any position, and why is he seemingly so calm about it? Are there issues at board level? Are there issues at recruitment level? Are there cash flow problems? You know, there's so many questions as a fan you want to know the answer to, because for me, it just doesn't seem quite right that a team as established as us in the Premier League, and a team that wants to be seriously regarded as a top 6 team, isn't making the moves to sort of mirror the image we want to be portrayed as.
Or the squad that he would probably say that he needed. I mean, he said a couple of weeks ago in the press he was quite open with that he was frustrated at the lack of movement, wasn't he? And you can see why. I mean, because I think Slimani is looking likely to go to either Torino or West Brom in the latest rumours, but Gray is probably going to have to stay around in the squad. And I wonder if Gray would have been one of those out the door if we could have got a forward in. I can't see that they've probably held on to him.
It is frustrating. You see someone like Ollie Watkins. Again, to be fair, he wasn't on my shopping list. He's probably on a lot of club shopping lists based on just yesterday. But that Brentford team, aren't two of them forwards still there? Like Benrahma and
Bueno.
Yeah, they're still there. Again, maybe it's too obvious to be going for players like that, but even at championship level or across numerous European leagues, surely there's I just find it hard to conceive that our recruitment team doesn't have what is going wrong? Like, we're not even linked with players. Like, it's just a really, really strange time, and it's not the first window. Like, January's notoriously difficult to business in, fair enough. But we came unstuck last season. Everyone was like, okay, fair enough, we're going to start this next season better. And yeah, sure, COVID and things like that have made things difficult. But I just feel there's something else going on at recruitment level that we're struggling to. Is it whether it's falling through at the negotiation stage, whether we're being too tight with money? I don't know. But this, as fans, we don't really get this sort of information.
I mean, the two frustrating deals that never happened for me. One was David Brooks, but I think Bournemouth slapped a 40 million price tag on his head, and you can see why the club didn't play that. And Benrahma, like you said, he would have been almost seemed tailor-made, but apparently he wanted 60,000 a week, basic plus his extras. So maybe it is financial reasons why we haven't paid it and why we haven't got anyone else coming into the club. I think it is very, very frustrating though. But
this is what I mean. 60k. Sorry again to interrupt. It's a trend. It doesn't sound like a lot of money. Again, I don't want us falling into this trap now where we want to be like a budget top 6 team. We've, as a club, sustainably grown, just like any business. We've not. I don't think the cash flows have been an issue, but are we just going to reach a point now where we're almost regressing and turning into a selling club? Like, obviously, we took a lot of money for Harry Maguire. Not even going to start on his performance yesterday. We took a lot of money for Chilwell, who had, fair play, a better game, a really good goal as well. But we have sort of struggled to directly reinvest that money. And I'm just wondering, are we at risk of being an easy target to get our players poached from us, whereas we should be the team who are poaching players from teams lesser than us, surely?
It was like the deal with like Benrahma. So it's 60k, and we just talked about all those players who were kind of getting off our wage bill. So surely 60k has to show up back somewhere on there.
Well, yeah, you think so. Like, if only. Obviously, we probably all play Football Manager or games to that extent, and it seems a lot easier to get deals across the line when you slap a load of bonuses in. If you get one international call up, I'll give you 3 million. It's all things like, do these things happen in real life? I don't know, but for me, I just feel like we've hit a wall with recruitment.
Yeah, promising your Brazilian wonder kid that if he scores 15 goals for the international team, despite being a defender, you'll give him 3 million. That normally gets over the line, and then you just never let him play for an international squad ever again. But it is frustrating. I mean, you're right. I mean, Silva leaving, that's got to be freeing up the best part of 80,000. I think Gazal's on decent money. Diabate was even on a fair whack, and I think we said before, Kapuchka was on about 40-50k a week.
I want to see what he was earning like per minute played, because that geezer is some serious money over.
I think that probably, if you did it on per minute played, he'd probably be one of the highest earners in the Premier League. But I mean, a lot has been said about our transfer policy, and we've been held up as being one of the best sort of clubs for recruitment in the league. But we've had some absolute shockers by the same extent as well. It looks unlikely that we are going to be bringing anyone in though. So I guess, is there anything else we can do other than just hope that we don't get any major injuries and hope that we can get those players back fit?
It's got to sit tight now, really. There's not a lot you can do. But am I right in saying that the domestic window, amongst Premier League clubs, closes today, but we can still sign from the Football League for another 2 weeks, isn't it?
Ah, right, okay. So that would open the door to players such as Cantwell, Buendia, Benrahma, etc.
I believe so. Don't quote me. I'm sure someone will pull me up if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what I heard this morning on the ever-reliable TalkSport breakfast show.
I mean, so from the pair of you, say if that was the case, is there any one player in particular, either including or aside from those that we just mentioned, that you would take from the Championship? I'll put you on the spot here. No research allowed. Yeah. Best of luck.
Well, now you're looking at you got to be looking at what I'm not sure, the Bournemouth team, Norwich, and Brentford. The teams. Again, I'm saying that without really researching, but there's got to be someone in there. But maybe the Championship you're always going to pay a premium, I feel, especially if it's an English player. I'm just disappointed that, our recruitment wasn't stronger. Because ultimately, like in lockdown, they had a lot of time where, they weren't doing training and stuff. So surely they were still working, and they're just, anything, they had more time just to, watch endless footage of players everywhere around the world if they really wanted to. So it's just weird that we've not ended up with anyone. Well, we have ended up with a couple of people, but, not anymore.
Yeah, I think it's fair to say that the actual deals that we did are very positive. I mean, what did you guys have any sort of, even he wasn't on the pitch for a huge amount of time, but Under obviously made his debut. in that loss. What did you make of him from that limited time we got to see him?
He was probably the brightest spot we had for the limited time he was on. He looked at least on the ball and ready to at least take it forward and break down the defense. I mean, obviously there wasn't a lot of players that could really help him, but he at least looked positive, and hopefully with a couple weeks get up to a little bit more match fitness. Maybe we'll see him start against Villa.
I mean, I personally thought he looked absolutely rapid, but that was about it. I see Christian Eriksen's available for loan. That would be a true football manager signing, wouldn't it?
Really? Is it?
Apparently so. They want to get him off their books for half the salary they're paying him at the moment, which would make him on about £100,000 a week.
I mean, he's a class player, isn't he? I mean, I'm not going to get into fantasy land, but you'd take him in a heartbeat. Probably not for 100k a week, but depends how desperate they are to get rid of him. But surely, Paris, teams like that would be sniffing around a player of that quality still. He's only about 30, isn't he, I think? But for me, Under was the closest we've seen to someone like Mahrez, I think. Someone who's not scared of... It was a criticism of his at Roma by all accounts that he was a bit wasteful potentially, a bit showboaty. But I think when Mahrez first came to us in the Championship, he was, a lot of us would have said like, yeah, he's a bit of a skill sort of player, but has he got what it takes? And obviously, after a season or two, he showed that class. So potentially could fall into that same bracket. He just needs to learn his lessons quickly, probably take a couple of tough tackles and get right in there and get his first goal, most importantly as well.
Yeah, no, that's it. I mean, on Mahrez, I remember with the season we got promoted, I actually thought that Knockout was going to be more important to us than Mahrez. So perhaps all of my football opinions should just be null and void from this point. We haven't had any other questions in this week. The only question we've had in was from Adam Lane, who wanted to know if the famous village of Kibworth was pronounced Kibworth Beecham or Kibworth Beauchamp. I mean, thanks for that, Adam. I can confirm that it is in fact Beecham, so I hope that settles your family argument. But there's nothing else, unless have you guys got any questions that you want to bring to the table, or it's normally Ed's time to jump in with something nonsensical.
Question. Last time I did this as host,
please do, sir.
I think begrudgingly, it's let's look forward to some international football. Words that don't often come out of anyone's mouth. But Harvey Barnes, he is a positive, isn't he? See how he gets. You'd like to think he's going to get some minutes, whether it be in the friendly against Wales or in the two competitive fixtures that follow. Is it 2 or 1? Is there one competitive fixture? I don't even know anymore. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see, and hopefully get some time. And he probably will do now, because some of the England lads thought it'd be good to have a birthday party at the weekend, didn't they?
I know. Imagine being the bloke that organised a surprise birthday party with more than 20 people there. I mean, oh God, Abraham's there like, I mean, what do you want me to do? Organise it. Poor bloke. Oh, my heart bleeds for him. But just so there are 3 games. We play Wales as in a friendly before playing a proper team in Belgium in the Nations League 3 days later, and Denmark. So, of course, hopefully 2 Leicester players on the pitch in that game. Countersthorpe's finest and in Harvey Barnes, and obviously Leicester legend Kasper Schmeichel. So,
and that Belgium game, I didn't realise we were playing Belgium, to be fair, but I'm not sure what the Belgium squad is. Have we got Tielemans in there?
Yeah, Tielemans is in it. Obviously, Pratt's out with injury.
Castagna should be in there.
Oh yeah, well, nice little foxes thing, weren't it?
Yeah, that'd be great. So hopefully,
interesting. Well, that'd be potentially Barnes versus Castagna.
Oh yeah, that's a good point. I mean, my loyalties will really be torn there, because obviously I support Harvey Barnes FC. But yeah, let's hope that he makes his debut. There's no point updating the predictions just yet, because frankly none of us got it even remotely right. But we will, of course, do a further podcast previewing the Aston Villa game next week. So thank you very much for listening. Please like, subscribe on whatever provider you get your podcast, and we will see you in a week where hopefully Chris will have cheered up.